Good evening, everybody. I hope you are super fine. Let me just see if I can increase the shot here. I am glad to be here this evening. This is yours truly, Reverend Walter Wambazi. And this evening, we are looking at a very, very interesting topic. So, as always, I know when I come on live, it takes maybe 3, 4 minutes before people start coming on. But either way, some people watch this in retrospect. So if you watch this after the recording, remember that if you are watching on my YouTube channel, please ensure you subscribe, click the notifications button, and of course, you have an option of just selecting between the normal notifications and the one where you have notification for all our stuff. If you are on Facebook, well, follow, like if possible, the page, and of course, share. So today we are dealing with an absolutely touchy topic. This topic deals with the issue of childhood trauma, sexual abuse, and its impact on mental health. And it's going to be the first of 3 parts. And I have a very exciting guest. And just before I introduce her, so that she gets into the whole gig, let me give a bit of a background to how this came about. Those of you who are active on social media realize that we have a number of influencers on that platform. And recently, maybe about 3, 4 weeks ago, one of these influencers seemed to have what we call an absolute breakdown. She obviously has her own issues. We're not going to get into what that is, but what is interesting is that she found herself at a place where she started to say a lot. Now, I know influencers already say a lot for the purposes of building numbers. That's a very common thing among these influencers. But this particular case really did become quite scary because she made some absolutely gobsmackingly serious accusations on her videos. And so, whilst people were still trying to deal with that, whilst people were still trying to kind of manage and understand what was going on there, then she made some whoppers, like some really serious accusations. And then next time we had another video, we saw she had been, I think they were trying to have her institutionalized. So the video shows her running around and health workers are trying to get her and inject her to just kind of calm her down, and she's absolutely melting down, full-fledged meltdown on that particular video. And then after that, she went silent, and then after a couple of days, another video emerged, very sad video, where she was having a full-blown rant. But this rant, anybody who looked at it could tell that this is not the person speaking isn't cohesive in terms of their reasoning, the subject being discussed, like there was nothing that glued or gelled together in her rant. And so immediately that gave the impression that there was absolutely something wrong going on with her. And because of that, we realized that definitely this lady is not okay. So she did say a lot. And so, now the challenge is that because of her status as an influencer, she was an influencer before she had a meltdown on camera. She she made a lot of accusations. She made very, very serious accusations against her family, against colleagues, and she then also made accusations against just pretty much anybody that came to her mind. And so, in fact, for people like myself, when I saw that, I realized, okay, this girl is really at a bad place now. She's just not okay. So I was quite moved to see somebody like her have a full-fledged meltdown. And the problem is, it was live on Facebook. That's the challenge with these things. So somebody's having mental challenges, and then they have access to social media, and they go live. And then remember, they were influencers, so whatever they're saying is certainly not adding up. And so I commented and copied and did a write-up on that, and then that's how my guest today saw my comment and then commented. And her comment was very touching. And I recall that with her, just before she came and commented, another good friend of ours, Pastor Alan, based in the US, had we had a conversation around mental health. and he gave me her testimony from his understanding, which really, really moved me. So, based on that, uh, as the Lord would have it, as chance would have it, when Trudy commented, I said, "Oh, brilliant! This is my chance." So I reached out to her and asked her if we could, continue the conversation inbox, which we did. And so, long story short, that has culminated in this particular broadcast. And this broadcast is going to be touching on these issues and really going deeper into understanding this. But before we do that, obviously, we need to kind of go into understanding the testimony of Trudy. What makes Trudy qualified to give her input? But so before she does that, let's welcome Trudy. Please allow us to give to kind of welcome Trudy and thank her for being here. Trudy Kawumba Fuller, you are most welcome, my sister, and a good evening to you.
Good evening,
Hello.
Reverend, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. I pray that so many. Good evening, and I'm grateful that a lot of people are going to be blessed by the testimony and what God is about to do.
Absolutely. In fact, let's really first of all, maybe before we really go deeper into this presentation, maybe just a bit of a background. Who is Trudy? Who are you? For those who don't know who you are.
Trudy is a child of God to start with. I'm a fashion designer. Most of you know me as True Design. I love God, and I'm the second born in the family of three girls. And yes, that's about it.
Okay. And so besides that, maybe let's go right back to the beginning. Why? I think maybe let's start from this question. What makes you qualified to speak on this subject?
What makes me qualified to speak about this subject is because I'm a living testimony. I'm a person that once got mentally ill and I gained my sanity back. So my experience prior to my sickness, my experience while sick, and my experience after healing gives me a lot of information to talk about mental health.
I hear you. And that's really interesting because when we look at you, you look absolutely, okay, like all's good with you. But that's a really interesting story. Now, maybe let me start from my own angle. How did I know you? I knew, for those of you watching, I knew Trudy because she was part of a group called Suwilanji. Not so, it was Suwilanji, the singing group. Is that the right name?
Zambian voice, yes,
Oh,
Zambian voice,
Zambian. Okay, so she was part of Zambian Voice, and
yes.
they were doing quite well. So I've always known her from the singing, and then I knew her from the fashion. So I never knew that Trudy went through a full-fledged breakdown. I was shocked when Alan informed me and gave me the story behind what happened. So maybe let me allow you. I'm going to do something here. As you notice, I've put you now on the center. I want you to just take your own time, Trudy, to narrate your story. I mean, just feel free, just go for it and narrate your story and what happened. Like, let's go right up to the beginning. There you are, part of Zambian Voices, a beautiful model like lady. You're doing your fashion clothes thing. I mean, you were doing your thing. So what happened? Like, let's start from there. What happened exactly?
So before there was this Trudy that was a fashion designer and a singer. There was a Trudy that had a background before she became a singer and a fashion designer. So my story goes way back as a child, as a youth, and as an adult. So there are some things that I went through growing up. Most of the things that people know, I came on the limelight when I was sharing my story about the time I got raped, and a lot of people got to know me about that story when I came out in the open. I've been sharing my story on how I overcame that and how I thrived and how I became a designer. But what people didn't know is that I had a very traumatic past, as in my childhood was not good. I'm a person that was molested at the age of 5, raped in my teens, and as an adult also I went through that. So there's so many things I had to overcome growing up. I stopped school in grade 6. I never went to school, as in, I never wrote my grade 7 exams. I've never written grade 7 exams. And a lot of hustling here and there trying to make life better for myself. So I'm coming from a background where I suffered sexual abuse, verbal abuse, and when you talk about even physical abuse, I suffered that. So growing up, I never used to say things to people, and I kept on bottling things up. So by the time I was coming in the limelight, Innocent Kalaluka is the one that helped me to come out in the open to talk a bit about my past. And the only story that people knew that was bad about me was the time I got raped. I think I should have been the first person who would have come out to say, this is what I went through. I was raped several times and I overcame that. I'm still facing life and moving on. So little did I know that everything I was going through as a child was piling up, and I had no way to bottle it out. I kept on bottling it in, and so the time I became a designer, I was literally trying to better my life. No one knew what
Okay, so
I was.
just yeah, I just want to just take you back just before we get to the breakdown. Maybe let's just go back. Sorry to ask, if you're not comfortable, you don't have to. But I just want to understand the
It's
dynamics of the rape. And then also, well, let's start first with the rape, which sounds like something that happened much later. But then also the molestation, the sexual molestation in your childhood. What circumstances were around that? Like, how did it happen? And then did you even have a chance, both in terms of the molestation as well as the rape, to go and report this? If you didn't, why?
no,
Let's start from there.
actually the molestation happened when I was 5 years old. Luckily, I still remember that and how it happened and where it happened. I may not give the details of how it happened because obviously I'm writing a book and there are certain things I would not say now. But it happened at the age of 5. By then, I was staying with my mom in Solwezi. We were the three of us at the time. My mom had the three of us, me, my elder sister, and my brother. I think my younger sister, the youngest sister, was also born, but she was very little. So there was a neighbor whom we used to call Uncle, and he just used to come, and he would come and say, "I want to buy you sweets." So he would take me, and things happen, and he would threaten me to say, "If you tell your mom, I'm going to kill you." So my mom actually died without knowing that I was being molested. And the time it was happening, and the time it really dawned on me to say I was molested. I never knew the impact. I never felt the impact until I started opening up. I think the first time I opened up on Smooth Talk, that's when I started feeling the impact to say my childhood was
Okay.
robbed, and I felt
I just
emotionally
I
I
just
was frozen.
I just I want to just go back right there. I just before you even come to the smooth talk part, two things I just want to find out from you. Number one, was it penetrative type of molestation? And number two, why do you think your mom never noticed? Let's go with those two.
It was penetrative. I would not go into the details. Like I said, it was penetrative. I would leave the details for the book. It was penetrative, and the reason my mom never knew is because I think she never paid attention. She didn't
Yeah.
know, and for me, I had fear because I was afraid that I was going to be killed. So I never told my mom. But when
Yeah.
you look at what happens with kids now, when birthing a girl child, that's where you need to notice what should be there and what should not be there. So this time I questioned myself to say, my mom used to birth me. How come she never noticed that this is what was happening in my behavior or anything? And I noticed that a lot of parents, they overlook such things because sometimes it's the least you expect for a child to go through.
Wow, that's a really valid point you're raising, because you see, I have a well, I've raised girl children, but I have a small girl child, and in our home we have a very, very open, very transparent conversation around this. And this is my daughter. I'm talking about my daughter was like 5, 6, 7, 8. We started this conversation when she was 5. And the other thing, and that's why I'm a bit surprised because, but not surprised, but not surprised because I know that if you are very observant, I mean, for example, with these girl children, I'm a father, but she's a girl. We'd always have this rule where we say, wash your, sorry, we're getting, I mean, this is a very touchy topic. So we say, wash your nunu, wash your nunu. And at the same time, as she's doing that, her mom, everybody's kind of alert. You're watching this kid. You know how she's walking, how she's going about, whatever she's going about. I mean, with kids, for example, one area that's very common is many of them get constipated. So if they get constipated, there's all sorts of processes to help them, decongest, which some of them are hilarious when the kids are suffering all that pain of trying to get rid of their stool. But it's still a brilliant opportunity to observe these children. And so I am amazed that, and it's not just you, it's many, but I'm amazed that there are so many parents who don't really observe. And I guess that must have a lot to do with being busy, or I don't know what it is, but it's just
Yes,
scary that parents would not
yes.
observe. Because there's a case recently, this was a convicted case, so I can mention the name. There's a reverend from a named church in Lusaka, and it was said that he was abusing his niece. I think she was a niece. She was, I think, 10 or 11. And how it was discovered is because when that niece went to the aunt's place, the aunt observed her walk and was like, why are you walking like that? And then, one thing led to the other. And then that's how they discovered that this was going on. And the aunt was shocked. And then she decided to record as she asked the child. So there was recorded evidence. She was asking the child, so how did this happen? When does this happen? Blah. And the child was very candid. She said everything. And then based on that, they then took the child quickly to the hospital to be checked. And of course, Trudy, that once they did that, immediately they were able to see that this child had been sexually molested. And that became heavy evidence because the evidence of the child verbally on that tape, plus the medical report, was an open and shut case. I thought it wouldn't go anywhere, but I was surprised to see that it went to the point of now he's awaiting sentencing. I don't know if he's been sentenced yet, but he's awaiting. And this is a reverend of a very reputable traditional church. So that's one of the very rare cases, and I really stress that part, very rare cases where I have heard a conviction secured against someone. So I think I just wanted you to, sorry I'd interrupted there, because I just wanted to hear the dynamics of that and to realize that based on your own statement, you say that for whatever reason, your mom just never noticed. And you think it's because she was too busy? What do you think was the reason, Trudy? Just for the sake of understanding.
I think she was busy and she just never paid attention because I'm sure she never expected that would happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Being
true.
busy
No, I hear
and
you.
being the least of a thing you'd think happened to a child.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously you guys never had these conversations. It wasn't something where your mom sat and said, ladies, listen, we live in an evil world. Make sure nobody touches you in a funny way. But there was no such conversation, was there?
There was no that relationship, and I would encourage a lot of mothers and fathers to create that relationship where you teach your children early on things that should be done to them and things that shouldn't be done to them.
So let's go to let's fast forward to the rape part, because that one also I think is just so serious. If you remember, I'd asked you when you went through that rape, was, first of all, where were you raped? How old were you? And more importantly, did you manage to report this to the police? If not, why? If you did, what happened? Was there, like, what was the circumstances?
One thing I noticed is that I grew up a bit naive and I had less information. And the first time it happened, I just didn't know it was even rape. I discovered it was rape after I was raped the second time. So the first time it happened, all I thought was someone forced themselves on me. And this is a person that just told me to escort them somewhere. We were going somewhere along the way. We reached a place where even if you scream, no one would notice. I couldn't just it didn't click that something like this would happen because this was a friend and it was the last thing I expected that would happen and it happened. So I didn't think it was rape because I never knew what rape was. So at the first time I didn't know what it was. So I didn't report it anywhere. All I thought was a man forced themselves on me because themselves he forced himself on me and um I had less friends and I used to be a tomboy. So I had less
Oh,
girls that I would confide in and where I was staying there was no good relationship. It's one of the places that was being abused. So there was no relationship where I would have gone to say this is what happened to me. Maybe if I had a good relationship with a person I was staying with at the time, maybe they would have helped and maybe it would have been reported, but that never happened. So I bottled that as well. I just said he forced himself on me. All I did was to cut him off and I moved on with life like that. So the next
how old
time
were
it
you?
happened, I was working. I was still in my teen. I can't remember. I can't remember, but I was a teen. So the next time it happened, I was working as a maid. I was working as a maid, and I used to knock off late. So this person used to come, and I noticed he wasn't really befriending me, but he had intentions of proposing me. So like I said, I was a bit naive. So I didn't know men. In fact, I didn't know anything about sex at the moment, at the time. So we were just chatting. We'd say, let me escort you after Nashisha. And then he would say, "Nkushindike kunganda." I saw it normal. I mean, people are moving. You don't expect someone to do something. Then one day, as we were moving in Itawa by some flats, when you're going to Itawa, there were houses that were not finished. And then he says, my friend is building a house. The rapists and people that do things to you, they're very clever. They know how sharp
Yeah,
you are and they know how dull you are. So as a woman, you need to be extra careful and extra smart to read between the lines when something is about to happen, you can actually tell that this is leading to this. But at that time, I was not able to tell. So all he said was that my friend is building a house here. It's almost finished, and I'd want to check the progress. Can you
progress.
escort me? Let's just see how far the yeah. So let's just check how far the workers have gone. And I reached there before I knew it. I was overpowered. My mouth was covered. I couldn't scream. It happened, and that time it shut me up. I said, this is the second time this is happening. There must be something wrong with me. In fact, what I started looking at was not the problem with anyone else, but I thought I was the problem. So I said, am I causing this thing to happen to me, or is there something that I'm doing that is causing men to force themselves on me? I didn't know it was rape, and no
Yeah,
one even told me that rape happens like this. So I said, this is all. The only thing I knew was that someone forced themselves on me the second time. And sometimes it's very difficult when you're pretty. I grew up with the model type of a body, and even if you say no to some people, they'll still find a way of getting to you. So as a woman, this is something I notice in a lot of girls growing up now, and being pretty is more like a crime to some level because you are not safe, to some level because all you think is someone will take advantage of you instead of waiting for the right time and whatnot. So, cut story short, when it happened the second time, I was working as a maid. So, there was no relationship between me and my boss. I couldn't say anything. I bottled that up. I didn't share with anyone. I didn't share with any of my family members, not even my elder sister knew. So I kept it. And I just, okay, this is part of life. It has happened. I moved on. Other things I was facing as verbal abuse in the houses I was staying because at the age of 14, I stayed in 25 different homes. In
mm,
25 different homes, 25 different homes, 20 of those were non Christians, three of them were Christians, and one of them I suspected was a Satanist because of the way he was behaving and the things that were happening at home. And this was a white couple. that I was working for as a maid. I actually grew up working as a maid. So most of these bad things that were happening to me, there was no one to really help me, as in come to my aid, because even my older sister was young at the time. My younger sister was even worse. She was young, and we were all being kept in different homes. So each one was going through their own issues, and I had to deal with my own issues. Then the last time it happened, it was the time I was a designer, and this person actually is around. I know him. I know where he's found. And when it happened, we were called. He was organizing something for designers, and as usual, I do not know if I was the problem, but the after the years that have passed, this is when I've just discovered to say I was not sharp enough, and
Yeah.
I trusted people too much, because when you're working, people don't think the same way. You need to leave
Mm,
some level of lack of trust in people when you're with people, especially the opposite sex. So you don't trust them, especially when you're left the two of you, anything can happen.
yeah.
So I was told to go for a meeting, and I was told this meeting, all of us are coming. And I went to that meeting. I discovered that all the designers that were supposed to be there were not there. I was the only one that was there. And this place is a very famous place around. A lot of people go there to have fun. And the owner of that place said, the meeting is not going to take place, so we're just going to reschedule the meeting. Let me just take you home. I got in the
Yeah.
car, and by the time I was getting home, things happened. And that time I was so shattered. At that time, I was staying with my older sister, and when it happened, I never told her until it was 2 years. That's when I opened up after 2 years. My sister was very annoyed. She says, "How can you keep this thing from me without telling me?" And at the time, all I was thinking of was wanting to kill myself. In fact, I told the man to say, if you had just gotten a knife or a gun to shoot me, you would have done better, because I think I'm tired of people taking advantage of me. You lied to me that there was a meeting, you had all these things planned, and you had your way. You knew you were powerful than I am. You know that
Yeah.
I'm a woman, and I couldn't fight. I couldn't fight, and then it was so bad. I said a lot of things to him. It's like I bottled out everything that I was supposed to have said to anybody on him, and he felt so bad. He said, "You can't be saying these things to me. You now make me want to kill myself." I said, "No, in fact, you should have just gotten a gun to kill me, because the person inside me is now dead." That's what I told him, because I felt like there was no reason for me to keep living and people keep doing the same thing to me. So that
So, but sorry
idea
to
of
ask
me
you,
wanting
was this in the car, or was this like he took you to this office,
in
or
the
like,
car, in the car,
Eesh,
in the car. It was
jeez,
parked in the bush. It was in the
wow.
car, and it was parked in the bush. And I don't remember getting in touch with that man after I told him, "You should have just shot me or just gotten a knife to just stab me. It would have been better." So, cut long story short, when I told my sister, she wanted to take it up and go to report, but then I just felt I don't want to go through this. I'll just let
Hmm.
it be. And that's
Yeah.
how it just died. So from that time, I have
Hmm.
been very careful the way I live my life. And um, people who know me, those that are close to me now, and those that were wondering why I behaved a certain way, it's because of some of the things that I had gone through. Because I just, even now, I don't trust anybody apart from my husband. So anywhere
Yeah.
you are, anything can happen to me, because I've gone through these things. And
True.
rape does not just take away a part of you; it rips you of your the comfort you're supposed to feel as a person. It's not there, and it brings a certain shame, because when you go through it more than once, you want to sit yourself down and say, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
What made
Yeah.
that person to be? So after rewinding my whole life, that's when I discovered to say, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I was not that smart. I should have read the situation to see that it was leading to this. And not trusting people is a good thing because at times it can work to your advantage. Trusting even people you just know is even the worst because people who do some certain things like this are not strangers. These are people you know.
That's it's
So
always prepared.
sometimes rep will not happen because yes, it's not a stranger who's going to, to come and rep you. Sometimes it's a person you know, someone you even trust, someone you think they know you, because they'll capitalize on your ignorance. They will capitalize on things they know you are not able to do or things you're able to do. And at
Your
this point,
naivety. Mm.
exactly. So it's good to get exposure. It's good to know things, and it's good to also. One thing I've learned is that it's just best to be extra smart as a woman because you need to take care of your body. You also need to look out for yourself because when you go through these things, healing is not easy. You see people
Yeah.
break down in marriages. You see people go through a lot of things. It's because of things they've been through. There are a lot of people that go
Yeah.
through these things. After I went through, then I realized that there are people that, even as I speak, there are people that are still going through these things, and people have gotten married, but they haven't forgotten some of the things that have happened to them. They're still battling with the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's very true, Trudy. So let's go now to this the snap, because I mean here you are carrying all this junk from your past, and it's all just bottled in there, and you've not gone through therapy, you've not gone through any form of treatment, mental, for this trauma you suffered. So what were the factors in your opinion? How did this process lead to your total breakdown?
Well, anyone who knows me, they used to call me Iron Lady. I'm a person that was so strong, despite the things that I have been through. I always have this drive to say it's gonna get better. So I'll keep pushing myself, and it became a habit. So everyone knows me as a strong person. Even when you are weak, they will not see the weakness. They will just say, "I told you no cosa. I'm a chance. I told you no cosa." So there was no place for me to just go and be vulnerable, bring out my
Mm,
vulnerability and seek for help or maybe counseling or anything. There was no such thing. So all I knew was that if there was no one to be there for me, I had to be there for myself.
mhm,
And life taught me that way. It's just now that I've learned to open up. Not that my sister was there for me, but there are certain things I never used to open up to her. I would only tell her after the situation has calmed down. Then I'll say, "Oh, you remember that time when this was happening? This is what happened to me." And then she just said, "But how come you don't talk?" And because my
mm,
relationship with my sister was not always, or my sisters was not always, we never spent time together because I was always moving from one place to another, trying to make
mm,
life better for myself. So
yeah.
I kept a lot of things inside. I never brought them out. And at the time of my breakdown, I had bought land. And before I bought land, what happened? There was a time when there was a United Nations World Tourism. I did the fashion segment, and I was funded by government. So before I was funded, the funny part is that the hardships for me were not just coming from partly from my peers, partly it was coming from my family, partly it was coming from friends in the fashion industry, and partly from just people I don't know. So
Mm,
the time I was funded, I went through a period of rejection because people were saying I was in Livingston then. People were saying I'm an optimist who has come from Lusaka. I went to get their money, and they gave me a hard time. Actually, they said I was not a designer, and everyone wanted that to be part of the money that I was funded by government. So That time was really difficult for me. I felt I did not belong anywhere. So I just thought, okay, let me go to Angola. Because during UNWTO, I met the Minister of Hotel and Tourism. So I thought maybe when I work with these links, I can find my feet and build up something in Angola.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I think we've just lost Trudy there. I hope she'll be able to come back.
Um,
Uh, I don't know what's. Oh, there she is. She's back. Okay, we're a bit worried. We had lost you there. So please continue, Angola.
yes. So what I did was after feeling a lot of rejection from everywhere, it's like I was not accepted everywhere. There were things I was going through with my own family, yes, and there are things that, like I said, I was going through with other people in the fashion industry, like a lot of rejection. So I reached a point where I felt I did not belong anywhere. So I said, let me go and start life elsewhere where they will accept me. So that's how I started my journey. I literally gave out everything I had in the house, and I only carried what I needed, like machines and where to start from. So I went. The first time the journey was okay, so I came back to get some more things. And the next time I came, when I reached the border, I was given two choices: sleep with the people at the border and get into Angola, or go back to Zambia because I had refused. So I said, no, 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 you can keep your Angola. If that's the only choice there is, I'm going back. But imagine a situation where walaila kunso naenda kwa Angola. How do I go back? So these people
Mm,
literally said, you are a fool. You are a fool. You cannot. This is just a simple thing to do. I said, if you knew what I've been through, you wouldn't even say it's a simple thing. So that's how I came back. I ended up staying in Tavuma. So in Tavuma, that's where I started rebuilding my life. And I stayed there from 2015 to 2018. So after raising enough money, I had bought land in Livingstone prior to my going to Angola. So I just said, okay, I've raised enough money. Let me go and build my tattoo rooms to start with, then see what happens. So I started the journey because my plan was to build the house and then go back to Chavuma. But
yeah.
sadly, by the time I was reaching Livingstone, I found that my land had been sold, and I had to start fighting the land to be gotten back. So it was at that point where I entered into depression, and I didn't know that I was depressed. And it was so severe. Like I stopped eating, I stopped socializing. All I started doing was on my own, and I stopped cooking. I stopped cleaning the house, and before I knew it, um, I literally shut down from the public. So the person that I was teaching how to sew in my skill center, she noticed it. So sometimes she would come and cook for me and sweep for me. She never asked me, but she noticed that I was depressed. So one
Mm,
day I was just chatting with a friend of mine. I was on the phone, and then I just felt electrocuted, like someone had pushed me to a transformer. Felt like my whole body had burned, and I fell down. I couldn't walk. And then I called outside. I said, "Am I like young dons?" And then they started laughing. My neighbor said, "Trudy, you're so funny. How can electricity electrocute you when all of us here are seated and there's nothing that has happened?" So they laughed. They thought I was joking. And then I crawled back in the house. Before I knew it, I started undressing. I started insulting. I started saying all sorts of nonsense. And before I knew it, I locked the house and people started coming to watch me naked. And that's how it started. And 2 to 3 days later, my sister was called and then she sent money. I was brought to Lusaka, and that's how they took me to Chinama. I was on medication, and it was quite some experience, and an experience I wouldn't wish anyone to go through. Mental illness is
I just
it's so deep.
so would you say that it was the combination of issues and the trigger was the land, eh?
The
Like when
land
you just went
and the
back and found
depression.
Yeah, then you just went into
Yes.
depression.
So
So, just
yes.
out of curiosity, what was it like for now your handlers? Because I'm imagining your sister is phoned, Mvelani, your sister Kuno is not okay, you need to come, blah, blah, blah. What, from what you were told, because obviously you were no longer in your mind, but from the stories you were told, how did that work out? What were the incidences that occurred in that state as you had lost it, so to speak?
Well, for me, I even remember 97% of everything that was happening to me. So I literally lived both lives. So I know how a mentally ill person thinks, how they feel, how they act, what makes them act a certain way. I was in between normal and abnormal. So I'd go normal, I'll go abnormal, I'll go insane, just like that. So I remember most of the things I used to do. Even I remember the story very well, even how I was gotten from Livingston to Lusaka. Like one of the things that happened was while in the FM bus we used, I sat where the driver sits behind him, and the person who was taking me to Lusaka sat next to me. I was in the corner. So she held me like this. So they watched TV. And then when they're watching TV, for me, I was looking at my life. I was feeling like they're watching my life and they were saying, yeah, if I then I got annoyed. And I said,
Mm,
Mwari tumba. Mnaenda nakwenda toko na apitiremu efi. So, and then I grabbed the driver as he was driving and everybody was scared because he would have been in an accident. I was so powerful to a point where five people couldn't hold me, couldn't handle me. It was very difficult. There were times where I would be a bit violent, but by the grace of God, they used to manage, but it wasn't easy. So, yes, that
mm,
was the first incident. The rest of the incidents were very deep and quite dramatic and quite touching. Because sometimes when
yeah,
we talk about them, we even say, let's not talk about them because they're quite deep. So that's how I was brought to
yeah,
Chainama. I was hospitalized. And Chainama is also another world. Never come
mm,
back China and Pamzako, where when you are there, it's another world. You
yeah.
live among us mentally ill people. So there were times where I'll come back to my senses, then I'll keep asking myself, what am I doing here? Why am I here? There were moments whereby Bantu was in here and then I would be there and Ambowasambika. I would be, I was a bit better than them and there were times where I was worse than them, so it used to vary. So it's not
Mm.
easy. It's
No, I
mental
hear you,
illness
Mike.
is
Just listening to that.
mental
And
illness. But
there's something very interesting, Trudy, you said, which really touched me. When we were looking at this socialite and her situation, you commented something that really touched my heart. You said, one of the things about that state of mind is you lash out. Like you're not really thinking. So you say a lot of things, and some of them really bad. And you gave an example of the time when you literally called your sister a Satanist. I don't know if you're comfortable to talk about how it is for people
no,
when they're in that breakdown. Like, what's going on with them? And for those who have the misfortune of being, watching their relative or friend go through that, how do you handle that? Because this person is really being bad to a point where you say, what, Nizak. But how do you balance knowing that uyo muntu sali bwino, what was that like?
uh, I didn't. I didn't call my sister a Satanist, but and like you were saying, I saw the. I've been watching. I've been following that influencer, and I've been watching her, and it's quite touching because when she's in an episode, I know what she's going through. So when she says
Yeah.
things that people will believe that what she's saying is true. I may not. I'm not saying she might have not gone through certain things. What I noticed about her, she's gone through trauma. I don't know
Trauma.
what
Trauma.
kind, but trauma, yes. I don't know what kind, but all I'm saying is we people go through different things. So maybe the things she'll say will depend on what she's been through. The things I'll say
Mm.
will depend on what I have been through. The worst I've done is to call my own sister a witch. This is the person
Oh,
who was looking after me. She was looking after me, and every time, in fact, this is how it started. Maybe let me go to how it started. One day,
Yeah.
my sister had a paper, and then she had this paper. She was looking at the next review we were supposed to go to. Usually, when you have schizophrenia, you hear voices. So I was hearing voices in me, talking to me and telling me things, and I believed those voices because whatever they said was gospel truth. So I was in the sitting room, and the voices told me go in the bedroom. Then I went in the bedroom. Then I found my sister reading the dates on the day to go to the review. Then the voices started saying, "You've seen, she's got your paper. This is the one that is bewitching you. She's the reason
Mm.
why you are sick." From there onwards, I changed my attitude towards my sister. I believed the voices in me. I believed what they said, and I started telling people that she was a witch. From the voices
Mm.
within me, not because anyone told me no. So
Yeah.
when when they are taking me to a hospital, people would be wondering. Sometimes they would be asking me questions. I'll only say, "Ask my sister. She's the one who knows." You can imagine everyone in my section and even other people from other churches would have known that she's a witch when she was not. I was in her house. She's the one that made sure that I did not end up in the street when I was mentally ill. She literally went down with her business. She laid down her life for me, but you find that I was saying all these things because I was sick. Those who were not careful believed it. So when I saw that social influencer say certain things, for me, because I've been there, there's a possibility that she's just making up things because she's hearing voices, but people don't know that you hear voices because you would not tell people to say you're hearing voices. It's only later
Yeah.
when I gained my sanity back, that's when I recall to say, "Oh, there, this is what was happening there." But what do you do to the person you've dented? How do you do the damage
Actually.
control? Because not everyone would hear the story you're telling to say she was not at the time. What about those people that have gone with a message to say she was a witch? They should
Yeah.
have been dented. She went through the shame. So after healing, what I did was to do a bit of damage control. I had to make her understand to say, "Look, I was sick. I wasn't doing these things on purpose." And very funny but true. After you posted that post, I got a call from a friend of mine on Facebook who is a family friend to that social influencer. And some of the things they told me made me very sad because when you hear what the father of that social influencer is going through, it's not very easy.
Yeah.
The only thing
That
I
I
said,
heard.
pray that,
Yeah.
yeah, so
So
pray
yeah,
that God help
I heard
her.
about that as well. There's been quite a bit of because you can imagine because of the nature of the work that man does and the background is from, these are things they just
Yes,
don't like in public. But unfortunately, the child is out there. And then, to make it worse, she's a social influencer. Because if she wasn't an influencer, maybe no one would have paid attention. But coming from the fact that she was a
yes,
socialite, an influencer, so she already has numbers. And then, she gets mad now. So you can imagine, I was informed, it's actually quite bad, whatever they are going through as a family. I'm informed it's quite bad.
yeah.
Please continue.
So the
Please continue.
public, what the public needs to know is that when you're mentally ill, you don't know you're mentally ill.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was mentally ill until at a certain level after gaining a bit of my sanity. And then at a point I regained my sanity fully. That's when I realized, oh, this is what happened. Then I sat myself down wanting to find out because no one told me. When I went to China, the only thing they found was depression. I only discovered that I had schizophrenia a year ago. Last year is when I went and asked to say, why am I taking this medication? What is my problem? Then they told me, they say, what? I asked them to say, what is the name of my problem? Then they said, you started with depression, then later they caught you with schizophrenia. So there are a lot of things that you go through. Yes.
Mm.
So there are a lot of things that you go through when you're mentally ill. All you need is support from the community, you need support from your family, you need people to understand. The church also needs to play a bigger role because mental health is broad. It's when
Yeah.
one person is affected, the whole family is affected. Because
Yeah.
you find that there are people who actually even believe that you are bewitched. Like I was
Yeah.
believing that my sister was bewitching me. There are people that were thinking, like, "Hakuna mtu ankamfana wake." But there were also rumors or prophecies that came on my life to say, "Ninabona na bamkarene." Some were saying, "Nizofuna nkala sate, sinabona viru vyanya." There was so much hate that I developed within me when I heard these things, and it's been so difficult to heal from all the things you hear people say. So to say this is what people can think of me after the love I have for God. This is what you know, even the people you least expect would even say, Kapena nagona na ramkari and his own. And some would say, yeah, in the Kala Satan is Mela as a designer, and then she failed. And this is why she ended up mentally ill. So there's so much to go through with people. And that's when I learned about the four voices. So there's the voice of God, there's the voice of man, there's the voice of the devil, and the voice of the people. When you learn to maintain, when you master them and maintain them, you live well, whether you are mentally ill or not. And at one point, I remember I even almost committed suicide while mentally ill because the voices in me were just telling me, ukaenda pa mwamba pafinde ko house ukafika pa last pa floor pad, just dropped down. It did not tell me that I was about to commit suicide. The voices were just telling me to do that. But luckily, I was listening to Christian voice, and someone was preaching about not taking your life and everything. That's when I came back to my senses. I said, "What I'm about to do is suicide, so I should not do it." And then I just start. Now, imagine if there was no Christian voice. I would have gone
Mm.
ahead, I would have committed suicide. People would have discovered when it was too late. So, mental health comes in different forms, and it hits us differently. To some, it's just through thought. The voice in you
Yeah.
just said, "Do this, kill yourself." People will realize was it panic, it's too late.
Yeah, just on that situation there, Trudy, allow me to come in a bit, and even for our viewers, I want to come in quite a bit on the point of the church. I you know, people like me are accused. I am accused of being a theologian with too much head knowledge. That's what I get accused. You have no power, as if the power is mine. It's from God Himself, and He does what He chooses, but not according to these Papa followers. They say you have no power. Start demonstrating. Now, the saddest thing about a lot of people from that circle is they are not educated. And what I mean by that is they don't have understanding and education concerning mental health. So, because of their ignorance, what they tend to do is they tend to automatically, through really bad diagnosis, call everything demonic. You see, and that's extremely dangerous because for people, and I'm really saying this to you who are listening to me on and watching this, and probably will be shared later. The danger with people going through what Trudy was going through is that certain statements and certain suggestions can fuel and worsen a situation. Because the problem is that you assume and therefore you begin a whole activity which fuels the mental state. It's not that that person is a demoniac. They are not. They are literally going through some mental condition. Like, for example, schizophrenia, well known for hearing voices. So we call it extra voices, extra sight. I've got another colleague of mine who told me when he'd open taps and see blood coming out. I mean, he had a really terrible experience also as a schizophrenic, and he'd have to take the drugs. And what those drugs would do is they would minimize the effect of the pineal gland, because essentially what goes on in schizophrenia is you have a hyperactive pineal gland, and so you're seeing things. It's true, you're seeing and hearing things, but it's because of your hyper state of that gland. And so by taking the drugs, it dulls that. Now, a lot of the schizophrenic and sick people wouldn't want to take the drugs because it ends up also messing with their mood and their perception, and so they feel like they're just in some bubble, so they hate that, so they want not to take the drugs, which of course makes it worse. But coming back to the church people are the worst because everything is called a demon, and that is so dangerous. Let
Yes.
me say this to you watching, that it's so dangerous because you feed into the paranoia. You feed into that state, whatever state these people are in, the psychosis, you are feeding it. And so this person is now validated. So what they do now, this is based on my studies in neuropsychology, is they now act out what these people are saying. This must be a demon. What, you know? So these people now start acting out whatever they think is going on, and so it worsens the situation. I mean, it doesn't even help them at all. And then they wonder why this person, my demons siacho, my demons siacho. I think we're got deliverance. Kanshi Muntu is going through trauma, PTSD, and then it's magnified now by the same, you know, psychosis. Please continue, Trudy. I just thought I wanted to come in there because it's so painful to hear that, you know.
I drank different kinds of anointing oils. I went to different churches. Demons were casted out of me that were not there. You find that no go for deliverance. The only thing I wish they did was to sit me down, counsel me, or I wish someone had noticed that I was depressed and maybe
Yeah.
dig into my past, just talk to me and tell me that everything is going to be fine. I needed more hugs than prayers,
Mm,
because
yeah.
what I remember is I talked a lot about my past during my time, the time I was sick. I used to talk about the things that were happening to me 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I remember one time my sister was even saying, abale kuchusha tabalipo na panole nchusha fe ndiwaka ele. You know, you find that ndiwaka ele and she would say ndiwaka ele ole nchusha. And when I look back, I feel bad for her because even the time she was going through that, even with my young sister, there was a time when I stayed with my young sister. So, and you can imagine, my young sister was not so experienced. So there was a time when an episode hit me, and then there were kids around. It was not just a good sight. I was in an episode. Kids were running to the bedroom because I was acting up and whatnot. So yes, they were helping each other here and there. They would take me to different churches. All they wanted was me to be well. Then one thing I noticed also was some of the churches we went to, they'll say sow a seed. Imagine you're sick, you're not working, you're struggling, and then they want a seed for you to be prayed for. Then you this time when I sit, it's when I wonder to say, I know the church needs money. I know the church needs support, but situation ya muntu kwa want even if you don't have that eye of discernment, at least for specifically for such things, you should just be able. Someone is really sick and you require a seed for them to
Can
be
you?
prayed for, and because people are desperate, they'll look for the seed. They'll come and give
And
you the seed
things
for them to be
to
prayed.
put back in. Yeah. No, I said they would sell things to bring. You sell stuff, you come and bring that money. I mean, that's just tragic. You know?
Yes. Sometimes you would find that would starve, would keep money and say we want to go and give offering. And my sister is very she's a deep Christian. I wouldn't want to call her religious, but she's a person that believes in the seed and sowing. Unlike me now, after my experience with the mental health, I'm a bit different when it comes to sewing and whatnot. So nalisuka kwa menso pano no, there are certain things that would not, although sometimes we even sit with her to say this no, not when you were sick. So we know it's not every pastor you go to say I have a seed, pray for me, because some of them will just make money and whatnot. So yes, we went through that, and it's been quite a journey and sad, and we are happy that I'm okay now, because at some point I remember one incident where I even ate in the dustbin in Lima Tower. Uh, I had run away, they couldn't catch me, I overpowered them. Now for Insala, and that time you couldn't even recognize me because of the way I was looking. If anyone had seen me or gotten a video of me, it would have been a sorry sight to see. I would go in the bins in Lima Tower. I ate from there. but they made sure they looked for me even during the night. Tabandekeresha, tabandekeresha, nalala out of the house. I would turn the house upside down, kulongololo, kusalanganyanga vansha munganda nale longolola. It was not easy, but they never gave up on me. They never let me go. Even the community was very helpful. My community where we are with my sister, nga bakumwena waingilira okubata moto aisha angeneraho oku. Apo now ya now pe not kupino kwa pa no. I was so famous for even being mentally ill.
Wow.
So iya itamuoneraho kuangeneraho kuyodenga tu wasamba. Sometimes it would be so dirty they would say apunta, but wasamba chano amena tiagera wasamba wamsambika toko wamsambika. These are things you remember, and if there's
Wow.
anything, I know there are people that think that God is not there. For me, gaining my sanity back is the biggest thing that God has ever done for me. I know He's done so many things for me, and imagine you get mentally ill, you give up on everything. I got mentally ill when I was single. Obviously, I gave up on life and love, and I just said I would never get married. Who would want to marry someone that has been
As a
mentally ill
history.
before? You know how it is in South. Exactly. They will just, oh, no, sorry, or maybe I'm a phone. People would do
Mm,
that. But God will just turn your life upside down and just make it. And even when I reached rock bottom, I didn't know what to do. I wear this type of dresses because I call it purpose collection, because even when my pieces were so scattered, I still pick them up and I pick myself up and I still say I still have a journey, I still have to go and move on. And because there's a reason why God created me. So Shai Karaka Yona Lipona, Yona Lipeninepo. I still had to find meaning in other things, redefine my purpose on earth, and you know, make something out of it. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes you give up. But the
mm.
same energy I had before I got mentally ill, and it shocks me. And I'm this person who even when I go through the worst, I always pick my pieces and I say, I'm still going ahead.
Wow. That's just amazing. For the sake of those watching, what brought you back from that really dark place? What was that journey back to where you are now, where we can have this conversation, where you've got your life together? And I know our time is up. That's why we have three parts. But just maybe just this last bit, for the sake of the listeners, indulge us. How did you come back from such a dark place? Because that sounds so like you really went, like reaching Lima Tower, picking dirt from, eating from bins. I mean, that's about as far as you can go. So how did you come back from that? How did you get your mind back?
I would say God helped me, because if I say I got it myself, up to
Mm,
now, I don't understand, but the only thing I recall is that there was a fighting spirit within me. As much as my family were praying for me, other churches were praying for me, my sisters were praying for me. There was a lot of prayer and fasting, and the only thing I remember is that there was war within me. I was fighting mentally. So what people didn't know was that there was war within me. I was fighting mentally. When you're in an episode, there's war within yourself. You're fighting with the past, you're fighting with the present, and would be things that would happen. So what brought me back, I think, is apart from saying it's God Himself, I had a desire to get back to normal, but I didn't know how. So that
mhm,
desire brought in a lot of things. It attracted it birthed other things. So I was attracted to positive thinking, and this is the most difficult thing in mental illness, because when you're mentally ill, it's the negative things that fight you. So when they overpower you, this is my own finding. When the
mm,
energy, which is positive, is less in you, you are likely to be in the darker place for a long time than recovering. But when there's positivity in your thinking, it gives you
Yeah.
hope, and you sort of, it makes the burden lighter because mentally you have less stress. So what
Yeah.
brought me back was really the same fighting spirit that I would always have. I really wanted to be well, but I didn't know how I was going to get well.
Yeah. Ish. You know, I look forward to our next part because we'll go deeper into the sexual assault. You know, there's a video you shared. Ah, man, that video. Thank God that woman was, captured. But you shared a video, Trudy, and all you wrote on that video. This is a video in our private group. Don't think it's out there. It's too traumatizing to put on social media. But in that video, you wrote and said, "This is how childhood trauma starts." And in that video, a little baby, I think that baby couldn't even be 1 year, maybe 7 months, was on the floor. And
Yeah.
this woman that now learned later is the stepmother comes and just whacks the kid, like just whacks the kid. And the kid starts crying. And as if that was not enough, she then goes and gets a broom. Now, and I'm not talking about chipiango cha chopianga panja, the type we have in Africa. No, broom with the chihando chit.
Yeah.
No, yambo kumeng.
Yeah.
Okay, that video. Ah, it's so annoying. And when I asked in the group, of course, the person who shared, some others said, no, actually, she was caught because it was in Uganda, and then the whole case was blown in the public domain, and quickly they found, and it said that the police had to go and get her fast because the neighborhood were going to lynch her. They were going to burn her. They were going to beat her to death
Mm.
for watching that baby. And anybody who
Mm-hmm.
watches that, even I, as a believer, as a kingdom child, my blood boiled. So I can imagine what those in the neighborhood who knew the child and who knew what was going on, how they felt. But your statement was so heavy, Trudy. This is how childhood trauma starts. I want you to take that opportunity now. I'm going to put you full video, just so that you speak to someone. And then next week we're coming back, definitely. This is my wife, by the way, the one who's commenting. This is deep. Your story is very inspiring. Indeed, God wasn't done with you because he wants to use your story to help someone out there. You are a conduit to someone's life. I can add to her words, and restoration, life and restoration. You see, your story and so much of whatever is going on with you is definitely going to be a powerful means by which people will be helped. Remember, they overcame by the blood of the lamb and by the word of
And
their
the
testimony.
word of testing.
And so your
Yeah.
testimony is so powerful. I just want you to touch on that last point of this, the trauma bit. What you said really touched my heart. And I know next week when we come, we'll go deeper into the childhood trauma.
Uh,
But maybe your parting words, and also at the same, whatever you sense now to say, even as we wrap up.
um, Trauma starts early. For some, it happens maybe in their adulthood or something like that. But for the childhood trauma, all I would say is you think it's a habit. You just beat a child uncontrollably. You use um, bad words on them. What you say to someone goes somewhere. It's not falling on rocks or something. So emotionally, they say uh, umwana before tarasa mukisungu nkyayita but anyway, let me just say umwana takuli kulolera kifeesi akafyalwe era mukanda okulanda ekusuma. Even when they're just conceived, you start saying good things about the children. They hear, and whatever you tell them, even when they're in your belly, they will understand. It will get into them. So it's the same thing with trauma. When you are beating a child anyhow, when you are speaking bad things, this can be your own child, it can be your sister's child, it can be your neighbor's child, learn to be positive because you just never know. For me, I only wish I had a good background because most of the things I endured were not so good. And I didn't know that they would lead me into mental illness. And um, because I had no one to talk to, so I ended up where I was. So this time I tell people that mental health starts with love and it ends with love. So spread love more, be positive in what you do, whether it's your child, whether it's your neighbors or your sisters. Ensure that you spread love more than anything.
Wow, Trudy, thank you so much, my sister. We're looking forward to next week because, like we said, we're going to be having 3 episodes and we're going to go into different aspects. And I know one thing you told me, and this is for you who are watching. Trudy told me that it's not just herself, but there's a whole group of people that have come together and they've been really working towards, just advocacy on this issue. Now, some of these people obviously may not want to come on camera like this, but there's been work that
They
has been
will.
done. And say again.
They will. They are willing if you want them to.
Oh, okay, no, that's good. I was worried. I thought, Kapena, these things, Mama. Not everybody is can be like you. There are some people who just don't want their data out there. They want to keep it to themselves. Personally,
Yeah,
I mean, I respect, but
yeah.
one of the things I've learned, which I think for me is absolutely critical, is that talking, this coming up, opening up, and learning to speak about your issues is very therapeutic and it's cathartic. It really, really helps because one, you come face to face with your trauma and you accept it. And then two, it doesn't get weaponized because this is the other part that's very sad. When you go through like your situation, Trudy, sometimes not everybody's got good intention. So some people, if you don't say, if you don't come out, and if you don't let that become known, some people will weaponize it. They can use it against those you love in the future and say, are you aware
Yeah.
this same person even did this and this person did that? And then you can imagine if that's information you never divulged and then you're talking about a marriage and things. I mean, that's heavy. So you want a situation where there has to be some coming clean and speaking and letting people. You have to. It's just that I know these things are hard. It's not easy until you've gone through it. But me, what I know, even from my own issues, I can't compare them by any standards to you, Trudy. But I've gone through my own crap in my past and I've had to speak about it. I've gone through sexual molestation. I've spoken about it in public as a child. I went through divorce as a pastor. Like, what? What kind of pastor goes through it? I've gone through that. And I've gone through other issues. And I've had to come out because I realized, you know what? If you don't talk about these things, if you don't speak about them, what happens is somebody will use it as a weapon to mess you up. So it's
It's
better you take
also
you take
ministry.
that.
It's also ministry.
That's true. That's true. So you gotta come out, and but again, I respect people. I understand people who are saying no. I need to be ready. I need to be prepared. I can't just go out there. What will people think? I understand that. But the truth of the matter is, it always gets weaponized. I've seen it even in my own life, where uh, a secret is kept from you as a child, because it's an issue. So they keep it as a secret. No one tells you. No, and then you know what happens in the end? The very person who said they should keep it as a secret now uses it as a weapon. So they come and tell you, do you know, even
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, even that whatever you're doing is not even what, like all of a sudden now you learn, for example, the biggest issue many children go through is that this is not your father. Like they've never been your father. And maybe because your mother and father now
Yeah.
divorced or went through issues, so they just come and just drop the bomb on you. And the worst is when it's done by the person you think is your father, and then they just say, you shouldn't even be using that name. You see, so now imagine what that does. If the person is not mentally stable, one sister here said that people should stop judging suicide victims. Agreed, based on your story. But imagine people are different. The threshold for dealing with trauma is different with different people. So what if someone is the type of person who's got a very fragile personality, and then you tell them, "Oh, Zina, I mean, also
Mm.
Zina." kaleke chabe iwe ndiwe chi mwana chakunja, that kind of thing. So for some people
Oh,
that can shatter them completely. They can go into drugs, they can go into very bad behavior because they are failing. So I'm with you, Trudy. I pray more people can have the courage after therapy and counseling where needed to come out and talk, because I have never seen a person who's been able to come out and talk who didn't heal better. You know what I mean? Huh? Than those who just
yeah.
keep
Yes.
it to themselves. Yeah. So your parting words,
It's
Trudy,
true.
your goodbye.
Yeah. Uh, I'll still say let's spread love and let's begin everything in the house. Families, when we build strong families, everything is going to be well. If I didn't have a family that stood by me, and when I say family, I wish they did better, but my two sisters, especially my older sister, made sure that I didn't end up in the street.
Yeah.
If she had given up on me, I would have been just like anyone else out there. So let's ensure that we pay attention to mental health.
Thank you so much, Trudy. Thank you so very much for sharing your story. I know there are many
Thank
this people may share this here and there. I know somebody will be helped. And I'm looking forward to next week. We'll need to coordinate in the group and see which people are comfortable to come on and we talk further, because I think it will be just amazing to get all the different facets of what people are going through and what
Yes.
help is out there. And one thing I admire
Yeah.
about you, Trudy, is you have chosen not to allow stigma to affect you, because that's normally the other thing you go through, the stigma at abajani wofunda amafunda, like you said, vamafunda
Mm.
and people are so insensitive, it can be a joke even in,
Mm.
in some social gathering at vamafunda vafunse, but these people have no sense
Mm.
of of what's that word, courtesy. They just speak very hurtful things, but they don't even realize that they are being hurtful. So thank you that you've taken time to share your story. Those of you watching us, please share. And next week we're coming back, but it won't be at 8 o'clock. It'll be at 6 o'clock. I think I was tired. My wife knows. So I instead of putting 6 p.m. Nafaka 8 p.m. So did that, but at 6 o'clock I was on the call, and she says, "Oh, we are set for 8." You're joking, Auntie. Yes, you put 8 o'clock there. I said, "Oh my." So I had to apologize to
Yeah.
Professor Felix. So if you follow Professor Felix, we're back with him next week. So next week Tuesday we'll have the two back to back. We'll have her first, then we'll be done. Then we have Professor Felix. So thank you, Trudy, and to everybody watching us. God bless you guys.
Thanks
We'll
for
certainly catch
having
you
me.
again in the